Hey y'all, welcome to Adventures with Aggie, brought to you by Coco's Coffee House. Go check them out. They're located on Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village and tell them that Aggie sent you. Today we have our third episode of our coaching series and we hear from Richard James. Richard is a former Jamaican Olympian and a current strength and conditioning coach based here in New York City. Tune in to hear his story. Please welcome Richard.
Because with my name, Richard James, I am able to navigate through certain platforms as a Black man with a white man's name and just basically pretend as if I am not who most people think I am. And the reason why I started that is when I first got into coaching, I went to a prominent sports club in New York, and they offered me a position. And when they saw who I was, they immediately switched the position and attempted to give me a bucket and a mop and the direction to the back door. So that was funny, very very funny, and I just decided to not have people go through that, which I just went through. It kind of sparked me to change the whole process. Um, I am a proud graduate from Long Island University Brooklyn campus, both undergrad and grad school. Back in the days when our sports science department was filled with rock stars who the only thing we wanted to do was to compete and find the most appropriate way to train our athletes. And in doing so, we found out that all training programs work, but not all conditioning program work. And when I say conditioning, I mean mental conditioning. So to tell you again, I'm Richard James. I'm a strength and conditioning practitioner. I'm an Olympian. Most people say I should start with that, but I rather to start with my profession first, and just have people know that I've gone through a pretty decent amount of stress to get to where I am. And my intention is not to give my students stress for them to go where they're going, is just to help them on their way. So I hope that's good enough in a nutshell.
That's more than enough. That's perfect. Awesome. I guess usually I like hearing from coaches who are former athletes, right? Because you've seen both side of the sport. You've been coached and now you're doing that. So I guess the
Yes.
next question is kind of how does that help you with your coaching now? Like having being on the receiving end of coaching versus delivering the coaching.
First of all, what is coaching? Coaching is just being a person to help guide someone on the way, right?
Yep.
And I was blessed to have phenomenal guys working with me when I was actually not guys, men working with me as a kid and showing me how to navigate athletics. And in an effort to show them that I appreciate what they did, I became a coach. And my journey from being an athlete to a coach started in Titchfield High School. Titchfield High School is a high school in Jamaica that is over 230 years old. Rich tradition. And when I say rich tradition, I'm talking about everything you can think of. I was probably one of the dumbest guys to come out of Titchfield because everybody's either a lawyer or a doctor or accountant or just brilliant guys and girls who left Titchfield. So it started at Titchfield with Mr. Oral Dunstan, very powerful human being, a teacher who referred to his students as Mr. Barnes, Mr. James, Mr. Shirley, and Mr. McDonald. And he gave us a tremendous amount of power in understanding that we are worth the respect that a coach can give. And that's where it started. Going through a tremendous amount of struggles as a young kid and having an adult who's been through a lot to just sit you down and say, hey, young man, you're going the wrong way. Try this way. It might work. It might work. And just seeing how young men and women who followed his lead before my time moved from a very small space to a huge space in terms of performance, and just loving that transformation, just loving how a human being can actually help another human being to grow and get better. So that's where it started from. I was fortunate enough to not have the ability to um, do a lot of academic things that most people could. When I say fortunate, because it slowed me down. I have ADD. I get distracted very easily. But at the same time, my coach was able to recognize it and help me to move along the way. I started coaching when I was about 19 years old. I had repeated the 11th grade because of financial issues. And I had asked my coach, can I coach with you while I'm going through this 11th grade, the second year of 11th grade? And he's like, oh, most definitely. And what I just mimicked a lot of the stuff that he did. And he taught me how to, one, respect the athlete, because without the athlete, the coach does not exist. And two, respect the profession and do what it takes to help others grow on a regular basis. So that's how the whole situation started. That's how we get everything to move forward.
Amazing. You answered so many of my questions just with that one. I love it. Also, I guess the next question that I usually ask coaches on the show is kind of what's, you answered this a little bit already, but I kind of want you to go a little deeper into it, is well, first, who do you coach? Like who are your athletes, and why coaching? You know, I feel like you could have done so many things with your athletic background and things like that. So who are you coaching and why do you do it?
All right. Right now, I'm coaching a wide spectrum of athletes from middle school all the way to professional league. And these are athletes who are willing and ready to work hard to become better. And that's where I am, just working with anyone and everyone who is willing to learn and grow. Why coaching? I initially wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And when I saw the amount of time that I had to study and be an orthopedic surgeon, I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to do that. And then I remembered all the sacrifice my coaches made for me. And I just basically say, you know what? That's the direction that I want to go. Coaching, because at one point of my life, I didn't know I was an athlete. Another point of my life, I didn't know I was a world-class athlete. And those little discoveries, piece by piece, actually helped me a lot to develop a certain level of confidence within me. And those feeling of eureka moments, it felt so great. I wanted other people to feel it. So I decided to be a coach to help other young men and women experience the joy of achievement, whether it's winning a varsity championship or winning a race at school. It's just teaching people how to win, because regardless of how things are in life, the wins are the things that help us accept the losses, right? And a lot of time within a loss, there are wins. And our job as coaches is to help athletes to recognize the wins, just like, and I always look at it this way. Imagine you're on the ocean, right? And the only thing you have is just that little device that you use to look for stars. How do you know which way you're going if you can't see the stars? The winds are like stars. A lot of time they're far and they don't have that pattern that they normally have. But if you teach an athlete how to recognize those patterns, the winds start stacking up, start piling up, start, building, start growing. And that's what it is, just helping people to recognize wins. I don't know anything else.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's so cool too. I guess I've never thought about it in that way. So that's really cool to hear straight from you. Um,
Okay.
that's awesome. I love it. Um, I wanted to go into kind of the different methods that you use. I know we talked previously about your coaching philosophy. I feel like we just got a taste of it right there.
Yeah.
But let's, I guess, first start with encouragement. I guess this past year, I think athletes have needed encouragement more so than ever. Lots of crazy things have happened. So I guess
Mhm.
how have you kind of kept your athletes on track, and how are you keeping them motivated and encouraged?
I'm still struggling with that. I'm still struggling with it. I can't even pretend as if I know anything when I'm struggling with that because for every athlete who is still motivated to train, there's about 5 or 10 athletes who really don't care about athletics anymore, given the fact that we're faced with death in the pandemic. And it's very difficult to ask a young man or a young woman to push themselves beyond that limit when they're faced with a pandemic that is perceived as a limit. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
a few of the techniques that I've been using is number one, the Zoom. We're on Zoom right now, which I love Zoom. Another one is creating videos and sharing with the athletes, especially videos of wins. Just sending a video or two to an athlete to say, hey, do you remember this moment? Do you remember the feeling you got this moment? When was the last time you felt this feeling? And just having them relate to that um, actually helped to bring 1 or 2 kids out to train. Um, this year has been tough. There's no two ways about it. And we've had a lot of kids come out to work out and to set their goals. But I think I'm still trying to answer that question for you because it's difficult. How do you motivate kids to go out and do things right now? I don't know. I literally don't know.
Me neither. Me neither.
But
Um, yeah, no, I feel like the people have been very creative within the last year with the bounds and limits and things that they were allowed to do. Um, but I think I've connected with even more coaches for that reason. Like Coach Brad, who I know put us together. I've gone to so many of his virtual classes because that was my one piece of not sanity, but schedule. I was like, I know he's doing this Zoom class every day at 1 p.m. and I'm going to go, which helped
yes,
a lot.
yes,
That helped
yes,
a lot.
yes, yeah, yeah. So if I have to answer that question, I would
Yeah.
say it's the early morning strength and conditioning classes that I would normally have, or the evening strength and conditioning classes that I would have on Zoom. I do get a lot of kids showing up for those and participating in it. In fact, this week in track practice, I was able to call upon a few of those participants to demonstrate a few exercises, which when you look at their face, you can see that they actually feel proud that they were able to accomplish something. They were able to lead the group. So that was a good one. And this pandemic was really, really hard. So I've always told my student coaches and my athletes to make the necessary adjustment, make the necessary adjustment for whatever is going on in your life. And I never really understood how impactful that statement would have been until now, where you're literally afraid of someone else's breath. Can you imagine? Who would have thought of that?
It's crazy. It's crazy,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, saying that out loud, like hearing it, makes it sound so much scarier than like actually walking down the street with people. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild. Awesome. Let's kind of go into your coaching philosophy kind of style, right? So, if you were to describe your coaching style to someone else, like me, for example, how would you describe the way you coach?
I don't know. I
You don't
honestly
know.
don't know because it varies. It varies. So I see a coach's personality as being like water. You have to be fluid. You have to be adaptive, and you train to the athlete. You train to the athlete by basically recognizing who this athlete is and working on having them first recognize the value or the worth of what they're doing, and then tying in pieces of their lives together into this one task and having them put a ridiculous amount of energy into that and having them move forward. So my coaching style is just watery, like tasteless, odorless, shapeless, formless. But at the same time, I ask the athletes to give me the best. That's it.
That's that's a great answer. You say you didn't know, but I think that I can see it. I can see it now. Watery. I've also never heard that a watery coaching style, but I love it. That's
You
awesome.
see, the thing is, I chose that direction because as we look through everything, uh, there's a statement that a lot of people say: those who can't teach, um, and something else. I don't remember what it was, but that statement, "those who can't teach," kind of got me right here.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why, as I knew I was going to be a coach, but while I was studying coaching in college, I pushed myself to a point where I can get to the highest level and the highest level of competition. And I've always said, even if I can touch it, I don't even have to grab it. Just touch it as an experience. And that's basically what I use for the whole process of learning and teaching and coaching. Because everything boiled down to one point. Every human being on earth, everyone on earth ultimately wants to feel valued, special, and they want to achieve something. So knowing that, I just alter my training to that.
That's perfect.
Everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
And as a coach, we're supposed to teach people how to win. And winning doesn't normally mean just getting a medal at the Olympics, getting a trophy. It's learning skills that are necessary for survival.
Definitely. That's awesome. That's a great answer too. Cool. Just two more for you. Um, one I have is, I guess, what kind of tips would you offer to younger people, maybe students who are looking to be coaches in the future?
Tip number one, understand that you will be fired. Tip number two, you're probably going to lose your family. Tip number three, you're probably going to get a couple of people to hate you. And tip number four, stay who you are because none of that matter if you don't know who you are.
That's that's all encompassing. I think so many good tips. Um, that's awesome. That's a lot of tips. I asked for one tip and we got four, so that's great.
Sorry about that. That's
No,
that's
that's
me because
perfect.
nothing in life is black and white, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just shades of gray, and we like to do things here in our culture. We like to say it's either this or that.
Yep.
There's nothing that shares two dimensions, and that is one of the reasons why now, and I'm gonna branch off to something. Now we're seeing a lot of people being diagnosed with mental disorder because it's not about them understanding that they can flow through anything. It's about them understanding that it's either this or that. And if it's neither of both, when it's nothing.
For sure. For sure. I totally agree. I think that that's something that's being talked about so much more recently. And I think not just talked about, but understood. I think people are trying to understand it because it's not, I guess, affecting you personally. Lots of times people
Mm-hmm.
don't understand what those people are going through. No, but that's great. Great tips. Great tips. Awesome. Last question for you. I end all my shows on advice. So, what is one piece of advice you give to your younger self?
Trust people. Trust people.
Yeah.
When I say trust people, I mean trust that people are who they are. Um, Trust the good people for the good that they are. Trust the bad people for the good that they are. Understand that people are like ackee. And I'm Jamaican, so I'll explain to you what is ackee.
Please.
Ackee is a fruit in Jamaica that is a part of our national dish. Most people don't know that it's poison. All right. And the only time you can consume this fruit without it being poisonous is when it is properly prepared. That means it has to be mature, first and foremost, and it has to be open for it not to be poisonous. And then you have to remove the things that are poisonous and put it through the process that allow it to be edible. So in that, I'm saying to my younger self, not everybody who comes to you with $1 million contract is planning to give you $1 million in value. And not everybody who comes to you with something free is looking for something to steal. And I said that because I literally spent 12 years in a dungeon practicing my craft just so I can help other individuals get better as coaches and athletes, because of a lot of the bad experiences I got here in New York, where coaches, agents, and lawyers will basically group together to figure out the most effective way to maximize their income from unsuspecting young men and women who are just basically trying to build themselves as athletes. That's it.
Definitely. Yeah. Trust is huge. Trust is huge. I think that if I had to answer this question, that would also be trust would be involved for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Awesome. Well, Coach James, thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah, anytime, anytime.
Richard, thank you so much for sharing your story on the show. And tune in on Monday morning to hear from Wilma Wong, a trainer and wellness coach who works primarily with swimmers, but she's going to walk us through some of her training that she does for wellness. So tune in on Monday for more of Adventures with Aggie's coaching series.